Officer Ryan had seen many things in his years on the force: crime, danger, heartbreak, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw that night. A stray dog, cold and frightened, looking up at him with familiar eyes, eyes that mirrored the ones he had lost years ago. But when he reached for the dog's tag, his world stopped. Imagine losing something you love more than anything, only to find it again in the most unexpected way. That's exactly what happened to Officer Ryan. His life had been filled with duty, sacrifice, and loss. But on this particular night, fate had something else in store for him. A reunion that defied logic, a moment that would change everything. It was a bitterly cold night, the kind that made even the toughest officers wish they were anywhere but out on patrol. The streets were nearly empty, the silence occasionally broken by the distant wail of a siren or the soft hum of a passing car. The city lights flickered against the frost-covered sidewalks, and Officer Ryan Collins pulled his coat tighter as he steered his cruiser through the quiet streets. His shift had been uneventful so far, just the usual calls. A minor disturbance here, a traffic stop there. Nothing out of the ordinary, but something about this night felt different. There was an unease in the air, an almost eerie stillness that sent a shiver down his spine, and it had nothing to do with the cold. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming at him that something was about to happen. Then, just as he was about to turn onto the next street, his headlights caught movement on the side of the road. A dark figure, low to the ground, hunched and unmoving. Ryan instinctively slowed the car, his pulse quickening. His hand hovered near his flashlight as he squinted through the windshield. A dog, a large German shepherd, its fur matted with dirt, curled up against the base of a streetlight. It was shivering, its body trembling from the cold. But what struck Ryan the most wasn't the dog's condition. It was the way it looked at him. His breath hitched. Those eyes, those deep, intelligent, soulful eyes, they were exactly like Rex's. Ryan's grip on the steering wheel tightened as memories came rushing back. Memories he had spent 3 long years trying to bury. The late-night patrols with Rex by his side. The way his partner would bark playfully whenever Ryan reached for his coffee. The countless moments of trust and companionship they had shared. And then, the worst memory of all, the day Rex disappeared. He had searched for weeks, put up posters, called every shelter within 100 miles. Nothing. It was as if Rex had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a hole in Ryan's heart that had never quite healed. And now this dog. He knew it was crazy. It had to be a coincidence. But the resemblance was so uncanny that for a split second, hope flared in his chest. Dangerous, fragile hope that he had learned to suppress long ago. Ryan swallowed hard and slowly pulled his cruiser to the curb. The engine hummed softly as he turned off the lights and reached for his flashlight. His fingers felt stiff against the cold metal, but his movements were careful, deliberate. He didn't want to startle the dog. Stepping out of the car, his boots crunched against the frozen pavement. The dog flinched slightly, but didn't move. It just stared at him, ears perked, as if studying him, just as much as he was studying it. "Hey, buddy," Ryan called softly, crouching down a few feet away. His voice, though steady, carried the weight of old wounds and unspoken longing. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The dog's ears twitched, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, its gaze locked onto his. Something about that simple movement sent a shiver down Ryan's spine. Rex used to do that. Ryan's heart pounded harder against his ribs. It was impossible, wasn't it? There was no way this was his dog. The odds were astronomical. And yet, he extended his hand slowly, palm facing up. The dog didn't move, but its eyes flickered with recognition, or at least, Ryan thought they did. His gut twisted in a mixture of fear, hope, and something else he couldn't quite name. His gaze drifted to the dog's neck. There was a collar, worn dirty, but intact, and hanging from it was a small, circular metal tag. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. He hesitated, his fingers hovering just above the tag. His pulse roared in his ears as he gently took the cold metal between his fingers and turned it over. His world stopped. The name engraved on the tag was one he knew better than his own. Rex. Ryan sucked in a sharp breath, his vision blurring for a moment. His fingers clenched around the tag, as if he were afraid that letting go would make the moment disappear, that this would all turn out to be some cruel dream. He swallowed against the lump forming in his throat. His voice, barely above a whisper, broke the silence. "Rex." The dog's ears perked at the sound of his name. And then, something shattered in Ryan's chest as the dog took a tentative step forward. his nose brushing against Ryan's outstretched hand. A soft whimper escaped from deep within his throat, followed by a hesitant, familiar nuzzle against Ryan's palm. It was him. It had to be. Ryan's knees nearly buckled as he dropped to the ground, wrapping his arms around the dog without hesitation. Rex let out a soft, broken sound, half whimper, half relief, and buried his face into Ryan's shoulder. For the first time in 3 years, Ryan felt whole again, but a single, nagging question loomed in the back of his mind, gnawing at the edges of his joy. Where had Rex been all this time? And how, after all these years, had he found his way back to him? Ryan staggered back, his mind racing. This couldn't be real. Rex had disappeared 3 years ago, vanished without a trace. He had searched everywhere, put up posters, checked shelters. Nothing. He had finally forced himself to accept the painful truth that Rex was gone. And yet here he was. His hands tightened around the tag. The address on it was his old home, from before the divorce. His ex-wife had moved away. So how did this dog, this exact replica of Rex, end up on this street on this night? Ryan grabbed his phone and called the only person who might have answers, his ex-wife, Sarah. She picked up after a few rings. "Ryan," she asked, surprised. "Sarah, this is going to sound crazy, but do you remember Rex's tag?" he asked, his voice shaking. A long pause, then a soft sigh. "Ryan, there's something I need to tell you." Ryan clenched his jaw. He could feel his heartbeat drumming in his ears. "Sarah, what do you mean? What's going on?" Sarah hesitated. He could hear her exhale shakily. "Ryan, after we separated, I couldn't take care of Rex on my own. I tried, I really did, but he was depressed without you. He wouldn't eat, he wouldn't play. It was like he was just waiting for you to come back." Ryan felt a lump rise in his throat. He had always known Rex was attached to him, but he had no idea the depth of that bond. "So what did you do?" "I gave him away," Sarah admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "It wasn't easy, but I thought it was for the best. I found someone, a man named Gerald. He ran a rescue for retired police dogs. He promised me he'd give Rex a good home." Ryan's grip on the phone tightened. His free hand absently stroked the dog's damp fur. "And you never told me. I thought you'd moved on," Sarah whispered. "You never asked about him, and I didn't want to hurt you." Ryan closed his eyes. He wanted to be angry, but deep down, he understood. Their divorce had been messy, and he had buried himself in work to cope. Maybe he had been too afraid to ask about Rex, afraid of what he might hear. But that still didn't explain why Rex was here now, alone on the streets. "Where is this Gerald now?" Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Last I heard, he moved out of state. But Ryan, if that's really Rex, if he's there with you, something must have happened." Ryan swallowed hard. He looked down at the dog. Could it really be Rex? Was it even possible? He had to find out. "Thanks, Sarah," he said, his voice quieter now. "Ryan, I'm sorry," she murmured. He hung up without replying. Right now, he needed answers. The first thing he needed to do was confirm that this dog was actually Rex. He pulled out his phone again, this time dialing a different number. Dr. Emily Carter, the veterinarian who had cared for Rex since he was a pup. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Ryan, it's late, what's wrong?" "Emily, I need a favor," he said. "I need you to scan a microchip." There was a short silence. Then, "Is it Rex?" Ryan let out a shaky breath. "I don't know, but I have to find out." "Bring him in," she said without hesitation. 20 minutes later, Ryan pulled into the vet clinic's parking lot. The dog, Rex, was curled up on the passenger seat, watching him with those same deep, knowing eyes. Ryan reached over and scratched behind the dog's ear, his fingers trembling. "Let's get some answers, buddy." Inside, Dr. Carter was waiting. She took one look at the dog and gasped, "Oh my God, Ryan, he looks just like Rex." "I know," Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can you check?" Dr. Carter nodded and grabbed the microchip scanner. Ryan held his breath as she ran it over the dog's neck. A beep, a number flashed on the screen. Dr. Carter glanced at Ryan, then turned to her computer. She typed in the number and hit enter. Ryan's heart pounded. Then she looked up, her eyes wide. "Ryan, it's a match." Ryan felt the air leave his lungs. His knees nearly buckled. It was Rex. Dr. Carter placed a gentle hand on Ryan's arm. "But Ryan, there's something else." Ryan's head snapped up. "What?" She turned the screen toward him. Rex was registered under Gerald's name, but 2 weeks ago, he was reported missing. Ryan's stomach twisted. "Missing?" Dr. Carter nodded. "Not just missing, Ryan. Stolen." Ryan stared at Rex, his Rex. This wasn't just a chance encounter. Someone had taken Rex. Someone had left him on that street. and someone might come looking for him. Ryan straightened, his cop instincts kicking in. He had just stumbled onto something much bigger than he had expected, and he was going to get to the bottom of it. Sarah's voice was heavy with guilt as she explained. After the divorce, she had struggled to care for Rex alone. He had been restless, waiting for Ryan to come home, whining at the door every night. She thought she was doing the right thing when she rehomed him to a family that promised to take good care of him. But after a year, they stopped responding to her. Then the number was disconnected. She had no idea what happened to him after that. Ryan closed his eyes, the weight of her words sinking in. So Rex had been out there somewhere alone, searching. The dog in front of him let out a small whimper and nudged his knee, as if sensing his turmoil. Ryan looked into those deep, familiar eyes. "Is it really you, buddy?" he whispered. The dog wagged his tail slowly, hesitantly, as if trying to place the voice. It had been 3 long years, after all. Ryan took a deep breath and reached out, running his fingers through the dog's fur. The texture, the way he leaned into his touch, it was all too familiar. His heart pounded in his chest as he studied every inch of the dog, looking for any other signs, any undeniable proof. Then he saw it, the small scar just above his left eye. A memory flashed in his mind. Rex had gotten that scar when he was a puppy, after a playful tumble in the backyard. It was him. It had to be. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes. "Rex," he choked out, barely believing it. The name felt foreign yet so right coming from his lips again. The dog stiffened for a moment, ears perking up. Then, as if something clicked, his tail began to wag harder. His body trembled with excitement. A small whine turned into a soft bark, and then suddenly, he lunged forward, pressing his face into Ryan's chest, licking at his chin like he used to. Ryan let out a shaky laugh, wrapping his arms around the dog. "It's you. It's really you." Sarah was still on the line, her silence filled with emotion. "Ryan," she finally said, her voice thick. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea this would happen. If I had known." Ryan took a deep breath, wiping at his eyes. "I know, Sarah. I know you didn't mean for this to happen, but that didn't erase the fact that Rex had been out there, struggling, possibly suffering. He had been searching, just like Ryan had, only without the means to understand why he had been abandoned." Ryan's gut twisted at the thought of what Rex must have been through. Had he been starving? Had he been mistreated? Where had he been all this time? His grip tightened around Rex as he resolved to find out. The first step was a vet checkup. He gently guided Rex into the back seat of his car, murmuring reassurances the entire way. Rex hesitated at first, his eyes darting nervously. But when Ryan patted the seat and used the familiar command, "Up, buddy," Rex obeyed instantly. Ryan felt another wave of emotions crash over him. Muscle memory, trust. Somewhere deep inside, Rex still remembered him. The drive to the vet was quiet, except for the occasional glance in the rearview mirror. Rex lay curled up in the seat, his eyes watching Ryan, with a mix of exhaustion and familiarity. When they arrived, Ryan carried him inside, unwilling to let go for even a second. The vet, an older woman with kind eyes, took one look at the bond between them and smiled. "Looks like someone found their way home," she said. Ryan nodded. "I need to know everything. How he's doing, what he's been through, if he's okay." The checkup was thorough. Malnourished, dehydrated, but no serious injuries. Just a dog that had been through hell and back. When the vet scanned for a microchip, Ryan held his breath. Beep. Rex's old microchip number flashed on the screen. Undeniable proof. "It's him," the vet confirmed with a gentle smile. Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He reached for Rex, running his hands over his fur again, as if needing to feel him, to ground himself in the reality of the moment. The past 3 years had been cruel, but somehow, against all odds, they had found their way back to each other. Rex was home. The logical side of Ryan screamed that it was impossible. This had to be another dog, a coincidence. There was no way the universe would be this kind to him after 3 long years of heartbreak. But deep down, a tiny spark of hope refused to be extinguished. What if? Ryan knew there was only one way to be sure. He wasted no time. He scooped up the weary German shepherd in his arms, feeling the familiar weight of him. Rex didn't resist. Instead, he rested his head against Ryan's chest, letting out a deep, content sigh. The sound stirred something deep inside him, a memory of late-night stakeouts, the rhythmic breathing of his partner beside him in the squad car, the comfort of knowing that, no matter how dark the night, Rex had his back. He drove straight to the nearest veterinary clinic, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Every red light, every slow-moving car felt like an obstacle keeping him from the truth. His heart pounded as he pulled into the clinic's parking lot, barely remembering to turn off the ignition before hurrying inside, with Rex by his side. The receptionist looked up, startled by the urgency in his eyes. "I need a microchip scan," he said, his voice hoarse. Now, the vet tech wasted no time. They led Ryan and Rex into an exam room, where the veterinarian, an older woman with kind eyes, took out a scanner. Ryan held his breath as she ran the device over the scruff of the dog's neck. The room was silent except for the beeping of the scanner. A few tense seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a soft beep. A number flashed on the screen. The vet frowned, typing it into the computer. Her eyebrows shot up as she turned to Ryan. "This dog is registered under the name Rex, and the owner listed as you." Ryan exhaled sharply, his legs nearly giving out beneath him. His hands trembled as he reached out, gripping the edge of the exam table to steady himself. It was really him. Tears burned his eyes as he knelt down beside his old partner. "Rex," he choked out, voice breaking. The dog's ears perked up at the name, and he let out a low, happy whimper before pressing his face into Ryan's chest. 3 years apart, 3 years of wondering, 3 years of heartbreak. Yet somehow, against all odds, fate had brought them back together. Ryan clung to his dog, his partner, his best friend. "I'm so sorry," he whispered into Rex's fur. "I never stopped looking for you." Rex let out a small, contented sigh, as if to say, "I know." But as relief washed over Ryan, a new question took its place. How had Rex survived all these years? And who had taken him away in the first place? Ryan wasn't about to lose him again. He took Rex home, wrapped in a warm blanket in the passenger seat. The streetlights cast soft golden hues through the windshield, and for the first time in years, Ryan felt a sense of peace. He reached over, resting a hand on Rex's back. The dog leaned into his touch, his tail thumping gently against the seat. It was as if he understood. He was finally home. As soon as they pulled into Ryan's driveway, Rex's ears perked up. Even after 3 long years, something about this place still felt familiar to him. Ryan opened the car door, and before he could say anything, Rex hopped out, sniffing the air, his tail wagging. He watched as the dog hesitated for a second before stepping toward the front door, turning back once to make sure Ryan was following. Inside, Ryan wasted no time. He filled a bowl with fresh water, another with the best food he could find, and set them down in front of Rex. But Rex barely gave the food a passing glance before padding over to Ryan, nudging his knee with his nose. Ryan knelt down, his heart swelling. "You just want to be close, huh?" he murmured, rubbing Rex's head. The dog closed his eyes, leaning into the touch. The bath was next, and it was long overdue. Rex's fur was still tangled with dirt, and as Ryan gently rinsed him, he saw scars he hadn't noticed before, small, faded marks along his back and legs. His stomach twisted. What had Rex been through all this time? But as he massaged shampoo into the thick coat, Rex let out a low, contented sigh. For the first time in years, he was safe. That night, Ryan set up the softest dog bed he could find in the corner of his room, placing a warm blanket over it. But as soon as he turned off the lights and climbed into bed, he heard soft footsteps. A moment later, a heavy weight settled at the foot of his bed. Ryan smiled into the darkness. "All right, you win," he chuckled, patting the spot beside him. Rex immediately curled up next to him, resting his head against Ryan's leg. And just like that, they fell asleep together again. The next few weeks were filled with healing, both for Ryan and for Rex. Ryan took him to the vet for a full checkup. Despite his rough years, Rex was in surprisingly good health. A few minor issues, some old wounds that had healed on their own, but nothing that couldn't be managed. The vet confirmed what Ryan already knew. Rex had been through a lot, but he was strong. Their daily routine quickly became something Ryan looked forward to. Morning walks in the park, where Rex eagerly sniffed every tree, rediscovering the world. Long car rides, where he'd stick his head out the window, ears flapping in the wind. Even simple moments, like Rex sitting by Ryan's feet while he read, felt like something sacred. One afternoon, Ryan took Rex back to the police station, unsure of what to expect. As they walked through the doors, officers turned their heads, eyes widening in recognition. "Is that?" One of them, Officer Daniels, stepped forward, a slow smile spreading across his face. "No way. That's Rex, isn't it?" Ryan nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "Yeah." He found his way back, the station filled with murmurs, disbelief giving way to joy. Rex had been a legend here, one of the best K-9 officers the department had seen. Some of the older officers knelt down, scratching behind his ears, while others simply watched, amazed. "Welcome home, buddy," one of them said, and Rex wagged his tail, letting out a happy bark. Despite everything, Rex hadn't lost his sharp instincts. During their walks, he was always alert, eyes scanning his surroundings. One night, as they strolled through the neighborhood, Rex suddenly stiffened, ears perked up. A second later, he bolted ahead, stopping just in time to startle a man trying to break into a parked car. The would-be thief froze, staring at the large German shepherd baring his teeth. Ryan quickly caught up, flashing his badge. "Bad night to pick the wrong car, huh?" he said. The suspect didn't resist. It was as if he knew there was no getting past Rex. Ryan couldn't help but laugh as he cuffed the guy, glancing down at his partner. "Still got it, huh?" Rex gave a short bark, his tail wagging. It wasn't long before Ryan knew, without a doubt, that Rex belonged back on the force. Not in active duty, maybe, but as a part of a station. The chief agreed. So, Rex became the department's honorary K9, a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and second chances. One evening, after another long day at work, Ryan sat on the couch, stretching his legs. Rex hopped up beside him, letting out a deep sigh, his head resting on Ryan's lap. Ryan ran a hand through his thick fur, feeling the warmth, the familiarity. He thought about the past 3 years, the loss, the searching, the pain. But now, sitting here with Rex by his side, none of that mattered anymore. "I won't ever let you go again, buddy," he whispered, and he meant it. Rex let out a soft huff, as if to say, "I know." And for the first time in a long, long time, everything felt right. Sometimes, the universe works in mysterious ways. Love, no matter how lost, has a way of finding its way back. For Ryan and Rex, it took 3 long years, but in the end, what mattered wasn't the time lost. It was the love that never faded. Ryan had spent so many sleepless nights wondering what had happened to Rex. The guilt, the regret, the unbearable weight of not knowing had haunted him for years. And yet, life had a strange way of weaving stories that seemed impossible. Against all odds, Rex had found his way back to him. Through the bitter cold of that fateful night, through all the hardships he had faced, he had survived, just to be reunited with the person who had loved him the most. The moment Ryan saw Rex's name on that tag, his heart had nearly stopped. The logical part of his mind had fought to dismiss it as a mistake, a coincidence. But deep down, something told him the truth. And when the microchip confirmed it, when Rex looked into his eyes with that same unshaken loyalty, all the walls Ryan had built around his heart crumbled. He had spent years trying to forget, trying to move on. But the truth was, he had never stopped waiting. Just like Rex, healing wasn't instant. Rex had scars, some visible, some buried deep within. He flinched at certain sounds, hesitated before trusting completely. But Ryan understood. He had scars too. Losing Rex had left a hole in his life, and now that he had him back, he wasn't going to let anything come between them again. They had lost too much time already. Days turned into weeks, and gradually, the shadows of the past began to fade. Rex learned that he was safe now, that he was home. Ryan learned that love wasn't measured by time, but by resilience. They fell back into old habits, morning jogs, quiet evenings on the couch, the unspoken bond between a man and his best friend. Ryan found himself smiling more, feeling lighter, as if a missing piece of his soul had finally been restored. The reunion wasn't just about two souls finding each other again. It was a testament to the unbreakable bond they had always shared. It was proof that no matter the distance, no matter the time, true companionship never fades. Rex had endured so much, but he had never given up. And in a way, Ryan realized he hadn't either. One evening, as Ryan sat with Rex curled up beside him, he thought about everything they had been through. The years apart, the pain of not knowing, the miracle of finding each other again. He ran his fingers through Rex's fur, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing, and whispered, "I won't ever let you go again, buddy." And this time, he meant it, because sometimes, the universe really does work in mysterious ways. And sometimes love, no matter how lost, always finds its way home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible animal stories.